They came to see somebody die there politically. And when I walked out that night, I knew that they were going to be dying on this issue.
Why would you work with National? I mean, Bolger and Shipley threw you out twice, and this latest, John Key, has ruled you out before you're even in. Why would you want to work with a party that's disrespected you constantly?
Well, I think that the country's crisis and circumstance at the moment means that anyone who takes the kind of selfish view that Rodney Hyde and Peter Dunn has taken doesn't understand just where we could end up and just how tragic it will be for New Zealanders. I'm prepared to work with anyone who's prepared to sit down now and get a set of agreements as to what has to be done.
But do you think John Key can run this country?
I'm not going to comment on other party leaders as to what they can and can't do. That's for the public to decide.
But
what I know I can do is, I, as the treasurer of this country, uniquely faced the biggest crisis for years. That was the Asian currency crisis, where we were losing 60% of our Asian markets. But by the program of confidence and keeping public spending up, we got through those years critically without any deterrence in our economic position. We paid back debt, we got inflation rate down, we got interest rate down, we expanded exports. But it was that mechanism that did it. And the moment I was gone, in October of 1998, Jenny Shipley came in with all those harsh measures, straight into recession. Experience is needed to handle this problem right now. That's why I'm demanding that when we bail out these banks, we get a share of the ownership, that we realise now how important supporting New Zealand banking is, rather than losing $4 billion every year going offshore into banking profits.
But you are one of our most experienced politicians, and we can't look to the experienced politicians of either of the major parties for advice because they are part of those major parties. You, who sits fairly as an independent, you say this is one of the most important times that we have economically. So should we as a people be thinking that John Key and Bill English and his party are the ones to run this economy, or are they inexperienced?
They're inexperienced. Bill English proved that last time. When he with Shipley did just that and sought to slash public spending at a critical time, when what was needed was to keep confidence up, keep house building going, keep businesses going. You start carving equity out of people's homes, and you're a small businessman on which your indebtedness is built on your home value. Now you've got a businessman and woman in crisis. They can't even prove to the bank that they're liquid anymore, that they've got equity on which the bank can rely. That's how serious this is becoming. And what I fear at the moment is that I look around the parliamentary setting and they don't seem to understand how deep this crisis could be and how serious it is. As we speak, 120,000 homes have lost all their equity. The mass majority of other homes have lost a half or a third of their savings in the home itself because of depressed values. This is all artificial. And it's on the back of that so many businesses have been established. And so when I look at John Key and Bill English on their past record, particularly Mr. English and his front bench colleagues who were all there back the last time they were engaged in this disaster, if they haven't got a severe restraint, then we will be in a recession before you know it, and it'll deepen into depression.
Does New Zealand have anything to fear from the National Party? Is there some sort of hollow man agenda behind them, do you think?
Well, the Hollow Man was written by them, not Nicky Hager. Nicky Hager assembled all the emails and all the communications, but there's nothing today in 2008 that suggests that any different from the Hollow Men.
If you couldn't be the Foreign Minister and you couldn't continue your previous roles as Senior Citizens and Racing Minister, what roles would you prefer to have, and what portfolios do you think your experience would be best used?
Look, I don't want to set out my ambitions in that respect. We have many options after selection, even to saying we'll go to vote issue by issue. We have to make this decision after the election between the board and the new MPs for New Zealand First. I saw what Mr. Dunn just said the other day. I was staggered, actually. You know, Mr. Hyde is bargaining for the same position just to be in cabinet. Well, frankly, you can do a dance height more outside of cabinet if you are influencing the way policy formation goes, rather than to be sitting there doing nothing, as so many in the past have done.
But you yourself were in cabinet. I mean, was that more useful than when you weren't? Well, you weren't in cabinet, but you were Foreign Minister.
Well, yeah, but I got all my votes sorted out, all the money and all the investments sorted out, and I headed down the track to save racing, which we have done. It's been a dramatic turnaround on racing. They were in the doldrums now. They're looking like very soon, say within 5 or 10 years, they can be a real first-class world leader.
What do you think of the Labour Party over the last 9 years? Do you think that they've been successful?
They've been in some ways successful, no doubt about it. I think Michael Cullen has been a very sound Minister of Finance. But I've only got one complaint about him, is that he was, I think, pressured into not changing the Reserve Bank Act. All his instincts must tell him that this is an export-dependent nation, that we've got to actually incentivise, assist, compete internationally for exporting, and that we could do so much better. But in many ways, on economic policy, they have showed that they learned from the disasters of the 80s. A lot of their social policy, though, in experimentational social policy, was not needed.
You've said that they have been pushing politically correct agenda, and that you've put a stop to it. If Labour forms next government, and you have a support that you will put a stop to it, what do you mean by politically correct?
Well, we did. We said in all your politically correct policies that you've been pushing...
Like what? What's a politically correct policy?
Well, look, they actually had a recognition of transvestites' rights policy, so that a transvestite could walk into the school and start being a teacher. That was a bill they had lined up. They had all sorts of other things. For example, when they said to gay people that you've got the same rights as in partnership as heterosexual people, there were thousands and thousands of gays who were alarmed at that.
Really? Why?
Well, they didn't want to be caught by that legislation, right? So that 3 years, here we go, half what you got's mine. They'd never entered the arrangement on that level, and there were tens of thousands who were alarmed about it and contacted people like me and said, for goodness sake, oppose that legislation. But they just pushed the agenda regardless.
But that's not saying that legislation is politically correct. That's saying that it doesn't appeal to the people that you are creating it for.
What I'm saying is that the whole lot of people who I knew were in that world, or those arrangements, were absolutely alarmed that here they were having, despite their own private arrangements and contractual arrangements on fairness of division of property, now they were having 50-50 rammed down their throat, and they didn't like it. That's my point. So I said to Labour Party in 2005, if you intend to go on with your type of social policy, we're out of here. Because that's not what New Zealand needs. It needs a sound economic strategy, and people's lives will be improved that way. And the only thing that changed was the anti-smacking bill, which came from the Greens, but which they signed up to. Now, I was overseas at the time, but had I been here, I'd have made it very clear this was a breach of our arrangement. I was in Uruguay, and I couldn't stop it because it was too far away. But had it been an anti-whacking bill, of course I'd have supported it.
But it's not an anti-smacking or an anti-whacking bill. It's a repeal of Section 59, which says that you cannot use the defence of punishment. You know, it basically says that you can't hit anybody but a child.
Sorry. They had in the law one defence. That law needed to be changed to assaulting a child. Now there's 5 defences for assaulting a child. Read the legislation. These people who are proponents of it refuse to examine the law that they've written. Now, what I'm saying is that the mass majority of decent parents were in the line here, whereas those parents who have been vicious and brutally assaulting their kids are still getting away with it. Why didn't we approach the real issue here? And it's substantially in the Maori world and the Polynesian world as well, but substantially in the European world when it comes to women, this abuse. Why don't they attack the real problem, rather than go and find good parents who might give their child an odd smack on the bum and say, you're the ones we're after here?
You said in your televised political address, we in New Zealand First could have done some things better. We're all human, we've made mistakes just as other political parties have. Is that as close to an apology that the public can expect from Winston Peters? Because some people were hurt that you took the corporate money.
Oh, this is ridiculous. This is hypocrisy in its worst extremes.